Previously, as Antares, the Monarch of Destruction, unleashes a massive mana wave for Jin Woo to sense his location, declaring, "I'm right here." The mana wave is so powerful that it is felt around the entire world and reaches Jin Woo. Antares says, "I've already taken the lives of tens of millions of your kind. How much longer are you planning to hide?" Jin Woo responds, "I will come and meet you soon." Fast forward. Antares stood on the rooftop of a ruined building, staring out over the battlefield. He noticed that Sung Jin Woo had been eerily quiet since that day and wondered what the hunter might be planning. Facing an army of 10 million, a head-on charge would be suicide. Perhaps Jin Woo had withdrawn, hidden in the deepest abyss. As Antares brooded, a rocket slammed into him without warning, followed by more missiles that rained down in quick succession. Fire and smoke swallowed the area. Military jets circled above and radioed that the target had been struck, though from their vantage it was impossible to tell whether the blow had been effective. While soldiers and pilots tried to verify the strike, the land itself began to shimmer with an ominous light. A gigantic, unblinking eye opened on the field, and a towering shadow took form. The presence coalesced into Antares, who, finding the spectacle dull, dismissed it as boring, then erased every soldier nearby in an instant. The scene cut to the shadow castle created for Sung Jinwoo's use. Inside, Jinwoo sat in silence, plotting his next move. His gaze drifted to a message scrawled on the wall. A small smile crossed his face as he thought of Beru and silently offered thanks. From the darkness, Beru stepped forward with tears in his eyes. He understood that Jin Woo intended to face the Monarch of Destruction. Bellion appeared as well, and warned that the coming fight was far too dangerous. Ygritte echoed Bellion's concern. Jin Woo acknowledged their worry, but made it clear that some dangers had to be met regardless of the cost. Then he asked Bellion what Ashbourne would have done if he were in the same position. Bellion answered that Ashbourne would have acted without hesitation. Nothing would have stopped him from doing what needed to be done. Jin Woo smiled at the reply. In that moment, Bellion saw the ghost of Ashbourne reflected in Jin Woo, and realized they could not keep him from going. Beru, Bellion, and Ygritte lowered themselves on bended knee and pledged their loyalty. Bellion vowed to stand by Jin Woo until the end. Jin Woo rose and the shadow contingent readied to march. As they moved out, Bellion urged him to contact his family. Jin Woo refused. He explained that if he heard their voices now, he might falter and be unable to move forward. Back on the battlefield, a military plane being chased by a dragon was shot down. The pilot ejected and parachuted to the ground, only to land in a scene of pure slaughter. Monstrous figures were cutting down everything in their path. Terrified, he scrambled for cover when a strange liquid splashed onto his shoulder. The pilot spun to confront a charging creature. He dodged a brutal lunge, fumbled for his weapon, and emptied his magazine point-blank into the monster's face. The bullets had no visible effect. As the creature closed in and the pilot braced for death, he blinked. When his eyes reopened, the attacker lay dead at his feet. Confused, he looked up and found Sung Jin Woo standing nearby. Jin Woo ordered the man to run. More monsters were on the way. The pilot screamed a warning, but Jin Woo lifted his daggers and, without taking a step, drew a single precise slash that wiped the approaching horde from existence. He declared that this was only the first step of the war. After the skirmish, Jin Woo used shadow extraction on the fallen monsters, converting their remnants into new shadow soldiers who would stand under his command. The scene returned to Antares. He felt the Shadow Monarch's presence and informed the other monarchs that Jin Woo had arrived. Yogman urged an immediate all-out strike, while Tarnak pointed out he could not detect any army of the dead among Jin Woo's soldiers. Antares suspected Jin Woo was deliberately spreading his forces across the field, absorbing enemy numbers little by little. He judged the hunter was buying time by avoiding a direct clash, and wondered what the Shadow Monarch's true objective could be. In Korea, Woo Jin-chul watched the news with a hollow expression. Reporters said the hunters who had gone to subjugate the demons had been wiped out, and that U.S. military units sent to buy time for evacuations had also been annihilated. The footage showed a world slipping into ruin. Woo reflected grimly that after Canada, even the United States, the planet's most powerful military, was being overrun. All humanity could do now was hope for a miracle. The thought of what might actually stop this calamity felt impossible. The view cut back to the battlefield where hundreds of fresh shadow soldiers surged forward like a black tsunami, swallowing ground as they advanced. Darkness spread across the field, swallowing light and sound. A streak of purple light sliced through the chaos. It was Jin Woo, cutting down monsters and expanding his ranks through shadow extraction. As he moved, a giant-type creature locked onto him and unleashed a devastating blow. The impact rippled across the plain. From the dust, Jin Woo emerged unharmed, having evaded the strike. He drove forward, aiming for the monster's leg, and with one clean swing of his dagger severed it. Before the creature could recover, the shadow army flooded in and tore it apart. Standing amid the remains, Jin Woo sensed movement above. He looked up to see dragons crowding the sky, spiraling downward with terrifying speed. Jin Woo considered whether the army of doom had begun its advance. He could not sense the Dragon King among them, so they were not yet at full strength. That detail gave him a little time. He reasoned that if Antares hesitated, Jin Woo only needed to give him a reason to move. Jin Woo used shadow extraction to revive the fallen giant. As dragons closed in, the giant's shadow reached for them and struck, felling several at once. The victory was short-lived. A massive fireball split the sky, and in an instant the resurrected behemoth was blasted to pieces. A colossal dragon descended and proclaimed that it served the Dragon King and would annihilate any who dared oppose him with mere puppets of mana. The dragon had not noticed Jin Woo behind it until the last moment. The beast whirled to face him, only to be cut down with a single decisive swing from Karmash's blade. Its neck cleaved, and life ended instantly. Far away, Antares felt the loss among the dragon forces and acknowledged that the Shadow Monarch was growing stronger. Realizing that further hesitation risked everything, Antares chose to confront Jin Woo in person. He ordered the Monarch of Transfiguration to remain and wait with the ambush, opened portals across the sky, and vowed that he would not let the Shadow Monarch escape. The story shifted to another district where the military tried to contain the chaos in the streets. Their rifles and heavy weapons had no real effect on the invading magical beasts. The commanding officer ordered his troops to keep firing without conserving ammunition, directing them to target limbs in the hope of slowing the monsters and buying time for hunter reinforcements. It was useless. The monsters closed the gap and began slaughtering the soldiers. Just as an ogre charged the line, a single crushing punch sent it flying. Thomas Andre had arrived on the battlefield. Thomas smirked as he took in the scene and told the soldiers that he'd fought the likes of these in dungeons before. There were many of them, but they were not particularly resilient. His presence sparked hope among the troops, who dared to believe that with Thomas here, they might survive. Suddenly, Thomas sensed a powerful presence and spun around. Tarnak, the monarch of steel body, stood among the attacking creatures, regarding him as the same human from their previous encounter. Tarnak sneered that Thomas had been a fragile vessel who nearly died at the beast monarch's hands, and proclaimed himself the king of monstrous humanoids. He made clear that, with a thought, he could end the man's life. Thomas showed no fear. He answered that Tarnak's assessment was wrong. As shadows rose behind him, he made it plain he had no patience for being toyed with. Belian materialized beside Thomas. The sight of the shadow army at Thomas's back stunned Tarnak. He demanded to know why the shadows were present, assuming they had been hiding within the human's shadow to conceal themselves. Tarnak tried to alert the other monarchs, but his attempt at communication was blocked, intercepted by Tusk. Taken aback, Tarnak realized that this tactic did not resemble the Shadow Monarch's usual direct methods of passing judgment. Rage flared through Tarnak as he began to transform. He concluded the strategy bore a human signature and snarled that he does not qualify to be a monarch. Bruce stepped forward, mana pulsing around him, and demanded that Tarnak take back his words. Insulting his king was a grave offense. Enraged, Tarnak shouted that no mere soldier could stand in the way of monarchs. Fully transformed, the monarch of steel body towered over Baru and readied himself for combat. The scene cut to the wider sky, where the Shadow Monarch, Sung Jin Woo, faced Antares, the monarch of destruction. Antares wondered why he could not reach the monarch of steel body telepathically, and suspected either betrayal or direct interference by the Shadow Monarch. Without further warning, Antares struck, determined to kill Jinwoo. The sudden attack stunned Jin Woo and shattered the ground where he'd been standing. When the dust cleared, Antares looked up to find Jin Woo hovering in the air. He had narrowly avoided the blow. Jin Woo summoned his forces. From the shadows, an armada of shadow dragons poured forth and began to rain down toward Antares. Meanwhile in China, seven-star hunter Liu Zhigang was clearing rampaging giants from the streets. After felling one, he muttered that giants weren't much trouble unless they were fought at sea. Then a tremor of power washed over him. The land's magic was quivering. Tens of thousands of hunters must be battling beasts at once. Even from his position, he felt the sting of that mana. The scene cut to Antares, who launched a massive explosion that rocked the battlefield, scattering shards of shadow high into the air. Antares mocked the Shadow Monarch, implying those scattered soldiers were all that remained of Jin Woo's force. He accused the Shadow Monarch of diverting his main troops to confront the Monarch of the Iron Body, while sending only weaklings to stall him. As Antares peered closer, he noticed Sung Jin Woo slipping into a portal. Enraged, Antares surged after the portal, vowing he would not allow the Shadow Monarch to escape. On the far side, Antares froze. The full Shadow Army stood ready, an undeniable sign that Jin Woo had already neutralized the Iron Body Monarch's forces. Turning his gaze, Antares saw Tarnak, the king of monstrous humanoids and monarch of the Iron Body, reduced and broken, missing 3 limbs. Baru sat atop Tarnak, silent and cold. Antares acknowledged that Jin Woo had taken out the Iron Body Monarch's forces first, then moved to draw him out. He conceded to himself that, strategically, it was an effective plan. Antares turned toward Jin Woo and dismissed the show of strength as ultimately meaningless. Suddenly, Yogamont, the monarch of transfiguration, appeared perched atop a ruined building, his presence announcing a new threat. The sky above them filled with countless gates, shimmering portals that opened like wounds in the heavens. Antares declared those gates to be Yogamont's work and announced that through them he could summon limitless reinforcements. Dragons poured into the sky, a hurricane of draconic force ready to crush the Shadow Army. Antares boasted that Jin Woo's plan had been destroyed and that the hunter's miscalculation would be his undoing. Instead of panicking, Jin Woo gave a small, calculating smile and began to recall his shadow soldiers one by one. Antares, seeing the Shadow Army withdraw, assumed Jin Woo had acknowledged the vast difference in their power and was conceding. As the dragons closed in, Jin Woo activated a new ability, a soul-shattering roar granted by the runestone taken from Kamish. That skill unleashed a mana-charged cry that drove weaker beings into despair and incapacitation. A nightmare specifically devastating to the dragon race. The roar struck the dragons and even Yogamont himself, leaving them staggered and felled by its effect. Seizing the moment, Jin Woo materialized beside Antares and seized the monarch by the arm, signaling that Antares would be taken along. Using Shadow Exchange, Jin Woo instantly teleported away with Antares in tow, and in that instant, Antares felt the terrible realization that every move Jin Woo had made up to this point had been orchestrated to produce exactly this moment. The scene shifted to an inhabited island, where Sung Jin Woo and his Shadow Army had taken position. Sung Jin Woo had brought Antares to that isolated location. When Antares asked where they were, Sung Jin Woo explained that the island lay on the opposite side of the world from Antares' forces. Antares quickly grasped the hunter's plan and acknowledged that in a full-scale war, Sung Jin Woo's mana would have been exhausted far sooner, so luring the monarch away alone was a clever tactic. Antares glanced at the castle behind Sung Jin Woo and asked if it belonged to the hunter. Sung Jin Woo confirmed that it did. Antares dismissed the fortress as unimpressive for someone who held the title of Shadow Monarch. Sung Jin Woo prepared for battle, summoning his weapons and noting that the castle would be a fitting place to mark Antares' end. Antares began to transform, declaring that the coming fight would test whether he could hold out until his troops arrived. In an instant, a gigantic dragon materialized before Sung Jin Woo and the Shadow Soldiers. The perspective cut to Lady Selner, watching from a window as dragons ravaged the land below. Director David stood behind her and observed that mana of many types was running wild and spilling across the region. He admitted he had doubted Sung Jin Woo's warnings and asked what they could possibly do now. Lady Selner replied that Jin Woo was not the only hunter left to fight. The scene shifted to Thomas Andre, who was cutting down demons that were attacking the country. As Lady Selner explained that hunters from around the world had joined the struggle, from E rank up through S rank. She noted that an E rank hunter's abilities were only marginally stronger than a normal person's, so beyond wielding magical weapons, their contribution was limited. The same constraints applied, in varying degrees, to D rank and C rank hunters. Typically, an E rank might fell a single beast, a D rank maybe 3, and a C rank around 10. Even S ranks who could kill thousands would eventually be worn down, like stars burning out. Yet when those individual lights fell and traced faint patterns across the sky, the combined shape hinted at something beyond the loss. People called that faint, collective shape hope. The story moved back to Korea, where an aide informed Woo Jin-chul that Jin Woo had succeeded in luring Antares to an uninhabited island near Japan. Woo Jin-chul recalled Jin Woo's explanation. The island spanned tens of kilometers and had once been the site where a giant's gate collapsed, leaving massive lingering mana, perhaps the very reason the hunter had hidden there. The aide asked whether they should dispatch hunters to the island as a precaution. Woo pointed out that nearly all S-rank hunters were currently deployed to the U.S. effort. He questioned what kind of reinforcements they could possibly spare. The aide suggested sending E-rank hunters as a precautionary measure. Woo reminded him that Jin Woo had once been an E-rank hunter himself, and that history showed even an E-rank could rise to become a hero. The scene moved to Jin Woo, who was locked in combat with Antares, the monarch of destruction, on an inhabited island. Jin Woo rode atop the massive dragon Kaisel, circling as Antares began gathering a devastating fireball. Before Antares could unleash the blast, a shadow soldier clamped the dragon's jaws shut. As Antares turned toward the saboteur, the figure revealed himself as Belian, who transformed his sword into a whip to prevent the beast from using its breath. Seizing that opening, Jin Woo's shadow giants surged forward and bound the dragon, holding it immobile. At the same time, Tusk unleashed a powerful spell that struck Antares and drew a pained roar from the monarch. Allowing no time to recover, Beru and Greed charged with blinding speed, slamming into the dragon's face and driving its head into the ground. Simultaneously, Igris channeled lightning through his longsword and struck, electrocuting Antares and inflicting serious damage. From his position in the air, Jin Woo watched his soldiers press the assault against the towering dragon. Seeing the damage accumulate, he noted that the tactic appeared to be working. To everyone's shock, Antares merely smirked and described the situation as amusing. He reminded Jin Woo that he had long taken pleasure in crushing foes through sheer numbers, yet now he found being outnumbered entertaining. Jin Woo was taken aback by the monarch's reaction. Rising to his feet, Antares activated Dragon's Fear and released a deafening roar, vowing to show the hunters the true power at his command. The wave of terror caused many of the shadow soldiers to begin disintegrating. Watching his forces dissolve, Jin Woo realized he could not maintain control and deliberately recalled his summons. Before he could regroup, Antares materialized directly in front of him. Antares unleashed a breath of fire with devastating force. The blast vaporized Kaisel in an instant and seared the island's surface. When the smoke cleared, Antares stood amid the ruin and declared that this demonstration was the true power he embodied. He explained that the avatar of destruction did not hesitate to sacrifice itself for the sake of war. He described himself as an amalgam of blood, screams, madness, and ruin, a being forged solely for conflict. In short, Antares identified himself as the king of dragons and the monarch of destruction. Confronted with that force, Jin Woo realized that even the vast mana that had sunk into the earth after the King of Giants' death had been insufficient to blunt Antares' assault. He understood that even immortal soldiers would be annihilated by a direct hit from the monarch's breath. While Jin Woo absorbed that grim truth, Antares reverted to humanoid form and descended before him. Antares told the Shadow Monarch there was no need to be overly nervous. He admitted that when Jin Woo had grabbed his arm earlier, he could have broken free. He added that he had not done so because Jin Woo had impressed him by cornering him. As a fellow monarch, Antares said, he had hoped for a quiet conversation. He reminded Jin Woo that, If the hunter had inherited the previous Shadow Monarch's memories, he would know their true enemy was not of this world. That enemy lay beyond the skies, the army of the rulers. Antares warned that the ruler's only purpose was to exterminate monarchs born of darkness. He emphasized that Jin Woo was no exception to that threat. Antares admitted he had once planned to eliminate Jin Woo and then prepare to fight the rulers. But witnessing the hunter's fighting style had changed his mind. He argued that Jinwoo's talents differed from Ashbourne's, and that, within those differences, he saw the prospect of glorious victory. Antares offered that, if Jinwoo wished his family spared, he would ensure their safety. He pledged that he could also preserve Jinwoo's country if asked, and if Jinwoo desired that Antares and his soldiers leave the land, they would withdraw quietly. Antares urged Jinwoo to become the ruler of the land, not merely of the castle on the hill. He clarified that he meant rule over the entire planet. Antares asserted that Jinwoo possessed the qualifications to hold such power. Extending his hand, Antares proposed that all Jinwoo needed to do was take it. He promised that, together, they could defeat the ruler's soldiers and restore peace and freedom to Jinwoo's family, his nation, and the world. Finally, Antares asked whether the Shadow Monarch would join him in alliance. Hearing Antares' words, Jinwoo scoffed and dismissed the offer as laughable. He added that Antares' eyes already betrayed a desire to kill, so the promise could not be trusted. Watching Jinwoo prepare for battle, Antares admitted he could no longer hide his intent. He said the offer had been his final act of mercy. Then Antares lunged toward Jinwoo. As Antares' arm reached out, it transformed into a massive dragon claw. At the last instant, Jinwoo jumped back and summoned Kaisel. While Antares finished his transformation, he spat a gout of flame at Jinwoo and Kaisel, but both evaded the attack. Jinwoo ordered Kaisel to dive downward. Once within range, Jinwoo leapt at the dragon's neck and slashed along its throat as he landed atop Kaisel. Looking at the cut, he realized it hadn't even left a scratch. Antares taunted that such blows could not harm him. Jinwoo ordered Kaisel to pull back, but the dragon unleashed dragon's fear and stunned his mount. Before Antares could press the advantage, Kaisel used his tail to snatch Jinwoo and hurl him out of immediate danger. Jinwoo landed on his feet and glanced back toward the battle. A moment later, Kaisel was struck by an immense breath of fire that also threw Jinwoo backward. The impact detonated into a colossal explosion, filling the air with smoke and dust. When the haze cleared, a huge crater marred the island. Antares observed that that kind of strike would not be fatal to him. Without warning, a streak of purple arced toward the dragon's neck. Jinwoo had managed to leap back and latch on to the beast. Clinging to the dragon, Jinwoo judged the hide to be like molten rock and drove his dagger in. His blade had no effect. The dragon's scales were too hardened to pierce. A massive claw swung toward him, and he tumbled clear just in time. While mid-air, he summoned shadow soldiers. 3 dragons closed in on Antares and opened their assault. Antares roared as one dragon restrained him, while the other 2 unleashed scorching breath. From a distance, Jinwoo watched and feared that even the ancient dragon flames Belian once led were proving ineffective against Antares. He realized Antares' strength and defense exceeded anything he had faced before. He conceded that his usual tactics would not work against the King of Dragons. Jinwoo began drawing in greater power, telling himself he needed strength capable of tearing through a mountain of armor with his bare hands. Dark mana began to swirl around him as he gathered that force. Meanwhile, Antares had defeated all 3 of Jinwoo's summoned dragons. He mocked the Shadow Monarch, saying that he expected to be defeated by such lowly shadows. But when Antares turned to face Jinwoo, his expression shifted to one of shock. The hunter was now cloaked in a massive dark energy aura. Stunned, Antares muttered, questioning the origin of this power and what scheme Jinwoo might be planning. Jinwoo explained that he could use the power of darkness to form an immense and durable armor, one that would be visible to all living beings on Earth. The dark energy expanded rapidly, dwarfing Antares and making him appear small in comparison. Recognizing the transformation, Antares realized it was Astralization and whispered, "Impossible." He recalled that the Shadow Monarch had originated as one of the fragments of brilliant light, and should not possess any form beyond his original. Antares questioned whether Jinwoo had summoned the power of death to Earth, struggling to comprehend how a human could now wield such control over life and death. Meanwhile, Jin Woo looked at his own hands, thinking that this was the true legacy Ashbourne had left behind. From within his colossal astral form, Jinwoo felt an endless current of power surging through him. Antares, wary now, reminded himself that Jinwoo had lived straddling the realms of the living and dead. Charging up his next attack, Antares reflected that this experience explained how Ashbourne could have entrusted such power to a human. He realized that Jinwoo had been shaping himself for battle long before inheriting this strength and concluded that he had to kill him. Jinwoo was far too dangerous. As Antares unleashed a massive fire attack, Jinwoo did not flinch. He calmly raised his hand and fired a projectile that sliced through the inferno, striking Antares and making the Monarch of Destruction roar in pain. Yet the blow alone was not enough to fell the Dragon King. They stood face to face as the battlefield fell into silence, the tension palpable. In an instant, they clashed, and the collision sent devastating mana waves shattering the surrounding ground. Antares rose to his full height, towering over Jinwoo's immense form. He struck with a claw, but Jinwoo blocked it and countered with a mighty punch that sent a shockwave rippling outward. Antares responded with ferocity, biting into Jinwoo's side, lifting him and hurling him high into the air. Jinwoo crashed to the ground, destroying everything nearby, and as he struggled to regain control, Antares unleashed another fiery breath. Jinwoo narrowly avoided the blast, but one of his arms was destroyed in the process. Despite the injury, he summoned a sword and charged. Antares countered with fire, but Jinwoo blocked it with the blade and slashed through both the flames and Antares himself. Antares retaliated, swinging his tail and launching Jinwoo backward, forcing distance between them. As Jinwoo stabilized, he saw Antares rising into the air, out of immediate reach. The Monarch of Destruction began charging a massive energy attack, and when it erupted, the impact devastated the surrounding area. From the smoke, a dark spear suddenly materialized and pierced Antares' wing, eliciting a scream of agony. Before Antares could react, Jinwoo fired additional dark projectiles, but Antares countered them with a torrent of fire breath. The two fought with all their strength, each attempting to overpower the other. Though Antares' raw power was overwhelming, he landed a decisive blow, and as the dust settled, Jinwoo's massive astral form began to dissipate. From the fading armor, Jinwoo emerged, landing firmly on the ground. Antares towered over him, and he remarked that maintaining such overwhelming power consumed an enormous amount of stamina. Transforming back, he offered a final proposition: join him. Jinwoo rose, resolute, and declared that he would never cooperate with a monster. Enraged, Antares manifested a sword and charge, warning that the Monarch of Transfiguration and the Army of Destruction were annihilating everything Jinwoo cared about. He declared that in the end, Jinwoo would not be able to protect anything. Even as they clashed, Antares continued, telling Jinwoo that even as the king of the dead, he must fear death as a human. He threatened to burn Jinwoo with flames that incinerate death itself and warned that everything Jinwoo tried to protect would soon vanish. Antares managed to disarm Jinwoo and drove his sword through him, noting that Jinwoo must feel the countless cries of suffering across the world. Jinwoo kicked Antares away, creating distance between them. Antares insisted this was war, and he pressed that the cries of humanity under the Army of Destruction must be heard. He placed his sword on Jinwoo's shoulder, commanding that their despair should silence all hope. Jinwoo, undeterred, countered, claiming that he was the one who should speak of despair. Antares failed to notice the Kamish blade hovering in the air. It struck him, distracting him and allowing Jinwoo to jump back. However, the blade could not penetrate the barrier surrounding the Monarch of Destruction. Antares sneered, ridiculing Jinwoo for thinking a dagger forged from a dragon's tooth could harm the King of Dragons. He commented on the irony of a battle between a flame born of darkness and a darkness born of light, predicting the fight's end. Jinwoo, resolute, agreed that the confrontation was reaching its conclusion. Antares asked if Jinwoo had finally acknowledged the futility of resistance. Jinwoo began running toward him, ready for the next move. Seeing this, Antares boasted that the army of destruction did not need to locate them. He would raise their morale by beheading the Shadow Monarch himself. As Jin Woo charged, the sun rose behind him, and he declared, "The sun darkens the shadows." Antares witnessed Jin Woo's most powerful shadow soldiers charging alongside him, holding him in place. He shouted a furious threat, promising to rip Jin Woo to pieces and leave him a miserable death for resisting the King of Dragons. In the chaos, glimpses of Jin Woo's father and Ashbourne appeared alongside him. Finally, the young Jin Woo struck decisively, slicing the Monarch of Destruction in two. In Antares' final moments, Jin Woo asked quietly, wondering if the monarch would see his own end. In Sung Jin Woo's hand, the dagger that once belonged to his father gleamed with dark energy. As Jin Woo struck another decisive attack against Antares, the sky itself began to fracture and ripple with energy. Antares, witnessing this unexpected phenomenon, muttered in disbelief, noting that he had never anticipated such a development. He questioned aloud how it could be possible, recalling that he had seen no gate upon his initial arrival. Connecting two worlds would require an immense amount of energy. Confused, Antares looked to the descending soldiers and asked whether this had been Jin Woo's plan all along. He speculated that the Shadow Monarch had distorted space through the clash of great powers to bring allies from another world to the battlefield. Antares admitted he had assumed Jin Woo merely wanted an undisturbed one-on-one fight. He doubted it was possible for Jin Woo to communicate with the rulers directly. Jin Woo calmly told him that there was a way. The vessels of the rulers, those who had been lent their powers, were still present and had been used. Realizing the truth, Antares looked up at the sky and acknowledged Jin Woo's strategy. He admitted that the Shadow Monarch had utilized the vessels to prepare a gate to this battlefield, securing allies even in the event of his own defeat. Antares reflected that his focus on the smaller-scale battle had led to his total miscalculation. Jin Woo, unwavering, asked Antares if it had been him who had ordered the Monarch of White Flames and the Beast Monarch to attack the Shadow Monarch. Antares, taken aback, asked whether Jin Woo had learned this from the Monarch of White Flames. Jin Woo casually flipped him off and said, "Ashbourne wanted me to send his regards." Infuriated, Antares prepared to strike back at Jin Woo, only to be abruptly impaled by soldiers sent through the gate by the rulers. Looking up, Antares saw the brightest fragment of luminosity hovering in the air, its radiance overwhelming the battlefield. He commented on the overwhelming contrast, noting how the world was covered in both blinding light and deep shadows, realizing he had never stood a chance to win. As his body began to disintegrate in the air, Antares spoke his final words. He would wait in the true, eternal rest, not the illusory one created by the Shadow Monarch. He promised that he and Jin Woo would meet again in that final place. Sung Jin Woo watched calmly, responding, "Don't worry, I'll see you again soon enough." The brightest fragment of brilliant light appeared before Sung Jin Woo, its radiance filling the area. It spoke solemnly, acknowledging Jin Woo's efforts. He had ended the war. The fragment admitted it could never fully express its gratitude. Jin Woo remained calm and replied that he wasn't sure this could be called gratitude, but he had a request, something only the fragment could accomplish. The fragment nodded, promising to do everything within its power to assist him. Jin Woo then asked if he could use the Cup of Reincarnation one final time. At his words, the other fragments fell silent. The brightest fragment's tone turned serious, questioning whether Jin Woo truly intended to reverse time. He warned that even if time rewound, the consciousness of the monarchs would remain intact. The fragment asked, "You'd still go through with it, even knowing the monarchs who died will return with their memories intact?" Jin Woo confirmed without hesitation. He clarified that he intended to face the monarchs and their armies alone, requesting that no one else be sent to Earth when time was reversed. The fragment remarked, "You are choosing to shoulder the entire war by yourself." He questioned Jin Woo's decision, noting that among all the timelines influenced by the cup, this was the most favorable outcome so far. Holding his father's blade tightly, Jin Woo reflected on the cost of the battle. "I lost too many people," he thought. "I want to bring them back." The fragment warned him of the cup's fragile state. Its durability was nearly exhausted. If Jin Woo failed this time, there would be no second chance. The fragment reminded him that if he stopped now, he would still be remembered as the hero who ended the monarch's invasion. His name would live on forever. But the battle he was about to undertake, no one would ever remember. Closing his eyes, Jin Woo thought of his family, his friends, and everyone he cared about. Rising with resolve, he declared, "I will go back in time." The fragment, impressed by his determination, acknowledged that Jin Woo sought to save not just part of the world, but the entire world with his own hands. He said Jin Woo's resolve reminded him of Ashbourne, the previous Shadow Monarch. He expressed his understanding and wished Jin Woo success. But before proceeding, Jin Woo asked about his shadow soldiers. What would happen to those who didn't exist in the past? The fragment explained, "Beings that overlap with the past will vanish. Those that do not will remain." Jin Woo nodded firmly, replying, "I'm ready." The fragment summoned the cup of reincarnation, raising it solemnly. "May your courage save your world," it said. A brilliant light erupted from the cup, slowly spreading across the planet. People all around the world witnessed the phenomenon. Among them were Jin Ho, Jin Woo's mother, Jin Ah, Wu Jin Chol, Liu Zhigang, Thomas Andre, Baek Yun Ho, Choi Jong In, and Hunter Cha Hai In. All looked to the sky in awe. Over time, the brilliant light gradually enveloped the entire planet, bathing everything in its glow. Slowly, the radiance faded until it finally disappeared, leaving the world on the cusp of a new beginning. The scene shifts to Sung Jin Woo's apartment building. His mother gently tells Gina to wake her brother. We then see a younger Gina calling out, urging Jin Woo to rise. Smiling, she notices, "You're already awake." Jin Woo steps out of his room and sees his mother in the kitchen, cooking. She looks healthy and vibrant, no longer sick. Nearby, his father sits calmly, reading the newspaper. Overcome with emotion at seeing his family together, and well, Jin Woo begins to cry. Concerned, his parents ask why he's suddenly acting this way. He responds softly, "I think I just had a nightmare." Watching his family happy, Jin Woo reflects, "My nightmare's over. Now I'm with my younger sister, my healthy mother, and my father who never disappeared." He continues thinking, "I've been given one last chance to set everything right. I won't waste this opportunity. I can rewrite the future that is yet to come. But just for a little while, isn't it okay to treasure this peace, a reward for everything I've endured? I know that beyond the skies, the monarchs are preparing enormous gates to strike us. For now, if this brief moment of peace doesn't bring harm to anyone, I'd like to enjoy it just a little longer." Later, Jin Woo's mother's doing housework when she finds a note on the table. Written in Jin Woo's hand, it reads, "I'll come back after I'm done with what I need to do." The scene shifts to Baru, who has just defeated a monster alongside Bellion. They sit before a pile of fallen demons. Two figures stand amid the aftermath. Jin Woo observes, "This empty world, filled with nothing but darkness, feels extremely lonely without fighting." He continues, "I managed to defeat the monarchs and killed the monarch of transfiguration, the one at the core of everything. It's been 27 years since I entered the dimensional rift. Finally, the long and grueling battle seems to be drawing to a close. Only a few enemies remain. The Dragon Emperor, Antares and his elite force, the Legion of Destruction. Sitting among countless corpses, Jin Woo thinks, time flows differently in the outside world. Only about 2 years have passed there. He reflects on his family. How are my parents doing? How much has Jina grown? Should I wait until she's a bit older before explaining everything to her? As he's lost in thought, Bellion approaches. All enemies have been eliminated. There are no survivors left, he reports. Hearing this, Jin Woo rises. With Baru and Bellion at his side, he activates shadow extraction on all the defeated foes, preparing for the final confrontation with the remaining monarchs. The scene shifts to Antares, the monarch of destruction, seated upon his throne. A subordinate approaches and reports that the monarch of transfiguration has fallen, asking whether they should move to a safer location. Antares responds, calm but resolute. "I am tired of running. We will face the Shadow Monarch here." He reflects on Jin Woo's strategy, using the cup of reincarnation to turn back time. "This was beyond anything I expected." As Antares speaks, a shadow begins forming before his throne. He narrows his eyes. "To think I would meet you again, alive and breathing. But one of us will rest for eternity today." Rising from his throne, Antares introduces himself with authority. I am Antares, the monarch of destruction. And you, what is your name? Jin Woo steps forward, unwavering. My name is Jin Woo, he replies. Do you have anything more to say? Antares, standing amid his vast army, simply shakes his head, saying no. Without hesitation, the two monarchs leap toward each other, their armies surging behind them. The ground trembles beneath their power, and the sky darkens as the final battle begins. The clash that will determine the fate of the world. The scene shifts to the outside world, 2 years after the previous events. The United States is in a state of unrest, stirred by a disturbing prophecy. A renowned clairvoyant, Norma Selner, warned the media of an impending harbinger of destruction who would soon descend upon the land. Normally, such prophecies would be dismissed, but Selner was no ordinary psychic. She had accurately predicted several major global events: the death of North Korea's dictator, the terrorist hijacking of passengers, and the stock market collapse triggered by real estate instability. Her flawless track record gave weight to this new warning. She claimed that this harbinger would arrive with an unstoppable army of death, leaving humanity with no chance to escape. There's no way for us to escape from him, she declared. Her proclamation that the end of the world was near sent shockwaves around the globe. The next day above Seoul, a massive black gate appeared in the sky, so immense it spanned almost the entire horizon. News of the gate quickly made global headlines. People from all over gathered beneath the colossal portal, anxious to see what would emerge. Slowly the gate began to open, but nothing came out. The crowd murmured in confusion at the emptiness. Behind them, a lone figure appeared. It was Jin Woo. Waiting for him was a fragment of brilliant light, one of the rulers. Holding flowers in his hands, the ruler greeted Jin Woo warmly. We are glad you've returned safely. Welcome back, Jin Woo. Or should I call you the Shadow Monarch? The ruler added with mild surprise. I didn't expect you to appear in the form of a middle schooler. Jin Woo responded calmly. I thought people might have been frightened if I appeared with a full beard. It's nice to have at least one person welcoming me back. The ruler then admitted, we honestly didn't believe you'd return after taking on everything by yourself. But now I see that every step you take carries the weight of 10,000 soldiers. Jin Woo, curious, asked, I assume you're not here just to present me with flowers? What business does an envoy of the rulers have with me? The fragment replied, the rulers have a message for you. It may take some time to discuss everything. Shall we move somewhere more private? Jin Woo nodded. I have a place in mind that I'd like to visit first. Fast forward, Jin Woo and the fragment of brilliant light sit inside a small ice cream shop. The fragment glances around curiously and asks why Jin Woo chose this place. Jin Woo shrugs lightly and says, after spending so long in a world where there was nothing, it's only natural to want something sweet. The fragment nods politely and then asks, so what did the rulers want to discuss? Jin Woo leans back, cutting to the point. Forget the formalities. Is there a problem? The fragment explains calmly, all immediate threats have been resolved, but the rulers are concerned about the immense power you now hold. Your strength is enough to sway the fate of this entire world. As you know, Earth isn't prepared for the magnitude of your abilities. Jin Woo tilts his head and asks, then why tell me this? The fragment replies, this world, one without mana, is far too fragile to contain such power. If you are willing, we'd like to ask whether you would consider relocating to a world better suited to your abilities. Jin Woo smirks, leaning back in his seat. Instead of the hassle of moving me to another world, you could always just seal me away completely. The fragment nods solemnly. That is possible too, but his expression quickly shifts to horror as he studies Jin Woo closely. Jin Woo notices and raises an eyebrow. Now that I've done my part, are you planning to get rid of me just because you fear my power? Flustered, the fragment quickly reaches into his pocket and pulls out a phone, showing Jin Woo a news article. Lady Selner's face dominates the screen as she warns the public about the arrival of a destructive force. The fragment explains, before your return, Selner issued this prophecy. Back when you disappeared, she wasn't this powerful, but after interacting with our world, her abilities evolved. Jinwoo leans back and murmurs, "So my return is what triggered her evolution as a seer." The fragment confirms. Jinwoo waves a hand dismissively. "We'll discuss this later." The fragment stands, bows respectfully, and says, "Very well, great monarch," before leaving the shop. Left alone, Jin Woo begins to reflect. If every living being has a purpose, then I, having become the Shadow Monarch and stopping the chaos of the monarchs, have fulfilled mine. I've completed my mission. He continues. But now the power I once wielded with purpose feels like a burden. Like nuclear waste after use, am I something the world no longer needs? His attention shifts to a young girl walking past the shop window. His eyes widen, and he rushes outside thinking, from now on, I'll probably keep questioning whether I should remain here on Earth. Meanwhile, young Cha Hai-in pauses, sniffing the air thoughtfully. Did ice cream always smell this good? Jinwoo watches her and reflects on all those he fought to protect alone. If there's any reason to stay in this world, it's because there are still people I love, and people who love me in return. That alone is enough, he adds firmly. I'll stay here and find even more reasons not to leave. As Cha Hai-in turns toward him, the two lock eyes in silence. The episode ends here. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. Thanks again for your support, and I'll see you next time.